A very good afternoon and welcome to all the speakers and participants for the virtual conference, SafePassage, Building Resilient Supply Chain and Logistics, organized by World of Chemicals and Chemical Today magazine. Currently, the oil and gas, fertilizers, and chemical industry in India are facing major supply chain and logistics hurdles given the ongoing disruptions due to the US-Iran conflict. The conflict has surely brought the world's most critical shipping corridors to a halt. For the Indian chemical manufacturers and logistics providers, the impact has created a shortage of raw materials, cost escalations, unpredictable timelines, and even led to pausing of certain plants. Due to this situation, the industry sees a need to revisit the transit models to develop more resilient supply chains and to plan for an era of unknown occurrences and geopolitical shifts. With this in mind, Chemical Today magazine and World of Chemicals has organized the virtual conference with the talking points revolving around crisis response, strategic shifts, resilient logistics, and future readiness. We will have the Q&A at the end of the session. We suggest all participants to mention their questions in the Q&A box. And for in-depth queries, you can directly get in touch with us. We will also be sending out polls during the session. Kindly answer them when it comes up on your screen. Without taking more time, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Brahmanand K. Mallik, Head of Supply Chain and Operations India, BASF. Mr. Mallik is known for strengths in leadership, key account management, and logistics. He has built a solid track record in the chemicals and agriculture sector. He consistently drives operational efficiency, cross-functional collaboration, and strategic growth in diverse regional markets. Mr. Mallik's career spans across multiple leadership roles within BASF, including business planning, demand planning, and supply chain management positions. Today, Mr. Mallik will be speaking on resilient logistics, strategies for strengthening India's supply chain blueprint. We welcome Mr. Mallik. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shivani. And I am really thankful to all the organizers as well as the participants for providing me this platform and opportunity to talk about some of the topics which is related to building resilient supply chain and logistics in India. So let me share. I have a couple of slides, so let me share it and then I will start. Give me a second. So you can see the slide?
Yes, sir. It is clear.
Okay. So this resilience is nothing which is a new term for us, in supply chain, because we are built around, assessing the risk, challenges in the operations and how we want to overcome all these things. So it has been there in our gene, I would say, in supply chain organization. But recently, it has started, these disruptions have started impacting the organization in such a way that the leadership and management is taking greater notice of it. And the frequency of these disruptions have become so high in the recent 4 to 5 years after COVID that it has become an imperative for whole organization to look into this and address it strategically, not only from the perspective of just when the problem arises and you find the solutions. So basically, that is important aspect, and that is why these are again important topics that we keep discussing within the companies and across different forums. Now let's see what is resilience from our perspective. So resilience is, in the simple term, I would say, it's nothing but a kind of plan B or backup plan or something which we can fall back upon if my main operation or main topics gets disturbed. So this is something which is important to bear in mind. And then if we want to build a system which helps us to be resilient and address some of the unknown unknown disruptions that come into being. So then it is important to understand it holistically. So put the whole, my whole overall thoughts together. I have one slide which I wanted to share with you, and this is nothing, just it's just a framework which I thought will be important for me to address this topic, and also put my thoughts together so that I can address it, and then we can interact based on that. So it's just a small framework. So what I call it something called resilient ecosystem. So when we are talking about the resilient ecosystem, it's a sorry. Now you can see resilient. So you can see my second slide, correct?
Yes, sir, we can see it. No
Okay,
problem. We
thanks.
can see it.
So what I call it as a resilient ecosystem. You can call it as a capabilities or something, but what I try to do here is that some of the pointers which are important in general to build this system, to build the organization as a resilient organization, and depending on the which area, which industry you operate, which are the dynamics, geopolitical topics, your overall value chain. So based on that, there could be many different points which can be added, or be important for you, or it may not be important for you. But these are the some of the pointers and lists which I thought that will be important if we want to build a resilient ecosystem. Now, for example, let's say procurement. When we are talking about the procurement, well, important things are that whether my procurement system, whether my procurement organization, or whether when I'm looking about the procurement, are we also looking about the sourcing, from not only from one source, but maybe from multiple or couple of sources. Are we also looking into the localization, where our overall procurement, the suppliers are based out of the same country, and you don't have to depend on importing several of the raw materials could be. So that is again something. And then if we have to look into all these aspects from procurement perspective, it is important to look at this strategic supplier partnership. Now, why I'm saying is that because all these aspects also builds on the overall cost structure. It impacts the cost. When we are having a margin squeeze, it is important that how we balance between these costs as well as these important topics. So for example, strategic supplier partnership. Suppose we have a two supplier for a particular raw materials, maybe in different geographies. You have to have the one might be the main one, another can be something which is backup, but then you cannot call the backup as somebody who you don't give orders to in general. So you have to also see that the backup also gets the order, and then there are relationship discussions on the different topics at a strategic level for those suppliers. So what is important is that how we build this strategic relationship for our critical materials in operations. Again, where my operations are, where my manufacturing sites are, whether my manufacturing sites are overall equipped to handle different utilities. For example, there could be utility like a gas, or whether it can be also from as an energy source, whether it can also be the coal fired energy source. So those are important aspects that we need to understand when we are looking into the manufacturing setup. Production line has to be flexible for at least for the products which we find it really critical. Do we have our own site, and can those materials be also manufactured at the contract manufacturing site? If at all we can have this consideration. I'm not saying that these all are something simple topic, but these are the topics which we need to consider it, look into this, and then say that, okay, it doesn't make sense or it makes sense. From a logistics perspective, there are lots of development happening in the country. So there are new ICDs being established. There are multimodal. There are industrial parks that are being established in India. And are we looking into this and actively, kind of evaluating all these developments that are happening, so that if my current, and maybe because of this, my current logistics setup, which is currently it is there, might change drastically in, say, a couple of years' time. So are we looking into all these aspects, not only from the cost perspective, but also from the perspective of bringing resilience? Because if there is one logistic model is not working, then maybe the backup logistics model can work. And when I'm saying backup, you have to keep it live backup, because it cannot be that backup will not work if you have not tested those logistics model earlier, and if you have not started using those logistics models. So that is again important, and it has to be consciously looked into. For example, inventory, what type of inventory you are keeping at what level, whether it is in the country or whether it is at the sourcing location, sourcing country, or in between the transit location. So, and in which form of this inventory that we have. From the regulatory perspective, again, it is very important, because how we are monitoring, because these are some of the biggest disruptors that we have in the industry. So how we are monitoring these compliances, whether the tracking and monitoring is happening properly or not. For example, I can give you one example from the regulatory perspective in agro business, where you have to register each product. Suppose I'm importing, say, in 1,000 kg pack, so that gets registered. And if you want to change the pack size for import, if you are not registered, then it doesn't happen. And for registering those packs, again, it requires additional data, additional expenses. So when we are going for the registration of such products, are we looking into it that my resilience in supply chain gets addressed? For example, if my shipment is coming via ship rate, and then there is disruption, can I get, as a backup plan, get the material by air? And if it has to be there, and particularly agrochemicals, if you see, there are hazardous goods, so there are certain packs only that can go with the air shipment. So if that is the case, then our material should, first thing is registration has to be there, and at the site there has to be also capability to pack those materials in alternate packaging type. So these are again important interlinked topics that are important when we talk about this building resilience ecosystem. Similarly, at what level of new product development or R&D supply chain gets invited, or supply chain inputs are taken into consideration? It's again a very important topic. Now, we can talk about all these things. We can say that, okay, these are the important topics, but what is important is that are we really looking into it from the perspective of building resilience? Geopolitical elasticity. In your critical material flow path, what are the key points where the disruptions can happen? Are we looking into, say, once in a year, or in our strategic planning, into some of these critical material flows, and where are the weak points, and what are the backup plans in case there are disruption in the material flow at any of the points? So these important topics are there, which starts building this ecosystem which is resilient, and consciously it has to be put there. As I said earlier, there are always, when we have the most effective plan, which remains the plan A, which is least cost, most efficient. When it comes to plan B, it is not always efficient. It can be a bit more costlier than the plan A. But are we seeing that this is important for us to build that plan B, which is workable plan D, test those plan B, and see that in case plan A is not working, I am able to revert to the plan B. So that is, again, you can add many things based on the industry that you operate in, based on the company that you have, based on the model that you operate in, based on the customer profile and everything. But these are some of the topics which are important from the supply chain perspective, which I think where we need to look into how we bring in resilience, where are our weak point and point of disruptions. Now, these ecosystem can be built on various tools which are available. So, and I don't have to mention all the things, but there are always, development happening in the digital world, and supply chain is one of the active user of all these disruptions, all these developments happening on the digital front. So, are we looking actively into it? Is it that I am, renewing my overall digital framework that I have, ensuring the visibilities are there, ensuring the decision points are put in the whole visibility digital framework where the decision has to be made. So these are again important top tools that we have at our disposal. Different audits. So for example, safety. Safety is how seriously we look into these safety topics, EHS topics, because these are again the point where from disruptions can come. It can come from internal lack in the overall organization on the safety culture. So this is again something which we really have to actively keep looking. There are different initiatives, as I said earlier, by the government. So we need to see that how can we make use of those interventions, initiatives that are happening and which are important from my company and industry. Of course, we have the various other management tools like financial management tools, which we can, overall take help of. So we have this, build the ecosystem, we have the tool. Then what is important is that it has to be part of my whole process, because it cannot be just for the sake of discussions, and then we brainstorm, we discuss several topics, and we keep it on the files. It has to be it has to be operationalized. With the proper topics properly integrated into the whole SOPs. Where are the decision triggers? Where are the roles and responsibilities involved? Even if I have a automatic, say, shipment done or route planning, are we seeing that if that route there are some disruptions automatically, or those alternate routes are given to us? Now the point here I'm trying to talk about is that the decision making. Generally, in case of disruptions, you will see that decisions are getting centralized. You will see that it is always a tendency to take everything in your hand, in the management hand, or maybe I would call leadership hand. And even for a small topics, then the decision has to be made by somebody sitting on the top. Actually, in case of disruption, it has to be reversed, because the person on the ground has to make decisions which are in the best benefit of the company or the operation continuity, business continuity. So this is again something which is important aspects, and it has to be put in the whole process. The people handling this process has to be aware. They have to be aware of these topics and what are the trigger point for making certain decision. Where do we see that, yes, really, I have to get to the plan B, is again something that we need to look into. Now, we have all these things, but it all requires a big leadership support. Now, when I'm saying leadership support, as I said earlier, there are always challenges. There will always risk in the business. But now we are seeing that there are more emphasis being given to build these resilient systems. So support from the leadership is important, because it always has some cost built into it. It may be not very efficient, but it has to be where the leadership look into it. Suppose as I said, give example of pack size, where I'm generating data for registration. Can we also generate additional data for other packs, maybe airworthy pack? And then this might have additional cost, but management leadership has to say that, okay, no, this is important from my resilient system. So that is where it is important that you have the leadership support, and it has to be, driven from the top. Now, second important topic is that whether these topics, these systems, are we cascading down the whole organization or not? Are we empowering the organization or not to take those actions? How aware these, our team members are that, okay, these are something which are from the perspective of resilience, that these topics has been put in my work area, in my roles and responsibilities, and I am authorized, I am free to take these decisions in case I feel these are the issues. And at the top of it, at the era when we have the severe margin pressures at across all the industries, it is really a cost of resilience. How do we balance? So we don't have to do it at a go. It has to be something which we do even at the incremental level. It is very important because not that everything you will be able to do it quickly or maybe in a couple of years, but over the 5 years, over medium terms, are we able to bring in those elements in our company, in our whole operations, which are from the consciously thinking about the resilience, which are the strategically, when we put strategically the thoughts about the resilience, are we bringing those topics into our play or not? So these are again important topics which has to be put in. So I thought that from my experience, it is not some scientific framework or something, but it is something which I think is important when we are looking at the resilience in India or maybe overall in the organization. So thanks for your patient listening. So I think that's all from my side. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mallik. It was a very interesting session. Some of the key aspects that I noticed from your talk was you were mentioning something about plan A, plan B. So definitely the time has come to put plan B into fast moving action and, make it a part of the work culture and see how do we take it forward. And then you mentioned that we definitely have tools, to improve the tracking, the visibility. So digital tools are there, financial management tools are there, but definitely the support of leadership and management decision making as a active part in the plan B and the resilience of the supply chain, that becomes a very important aspect. And safety culture that you were mentioning. So then I think definitely these are some aspects that the industry can look into. And there should be a poll coming up on the system, and maybe a video is also to be played. So then once the poll is done, we can start off with the video. And thank you so much, Mr. Mallik. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
The poll is done. People can register their responses. And then we can play the video also.
Right. Our next speaker is Ms. Priyanka Shivan. She is the head of supply chain of South Asia region at Clariant IGL Speciality Chemicals Private Limited. Ms. Shivan brings 25 years of experience to the role with deep expertise in optimizing supply chain operations within the chemical industry. She is a results-driven leader and has successfully led large-scale supply chain transformations within the organization. She has been recognized by leading industry forums as a woman supply chain leader reflecting her dedication to advancing leadership diversity within the industry. Today, she will be talking about the strategic shifts needed in the supply chain operations. Welcome, Ms. Shivan. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi, I hope that you can see me now. Yeah, hi, and good
Yes.
afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, a very good afternoon. Yeah, so hi. Thank you for introducing me with some very kind words, and for giving me this opportunity to speak to a wider audience base on the strategic shifts that have come in the supply chain over the years. Me having come from a background of strategies, okay, and eventually having moved into supply chain, say about, I would say, 14, 15 years back. So what I would be sharing here would be kind of a personal journey of mine in this organization, yes, and which will also kind of maybe throw some light on the kind of strategic shift that has happened in supply chain over the years. And I can mostly very confidently say that this would apply to most of the industries in our country, and probably is also true for many of the industries globally also. So when we talk of supply chain, and we probably rewind back to say about 15 years is also like a long time, but maybe we rewind back to 10, 12, 13 years. Supply chain as a concept, as a definition, did not exist, I would say. When I came into this role, the idea for me as in this organization from a global mandate was basically to build a supply chain structure from the scratch. So when you talk about the strategic shifts in supply chain, I would probably take some time in pointing out that to start with, there was no supply chain to start with. Even today, when I go to certain forums, or I'm discussing with other industry peers, it is still very, I would say, random supply chain organization as such. There are organizations where when you say supply chain, all they can think of is probability. Okay, now the material has to move from one place to another. It is all about logistics, it is all about transportation, and that is what supply chain is. But what I also emphasize, because we have to draw more talent to supply chain, we have to draw even women leaders to supply chain. We want to break the stereotype, and also tell them, no, supply chain has gone through a huge lot of strategic shift, and it's only not about the strategic shift that it has gone, but it is also about how supply chain was perceived in the past. People only thought of supply chain as moving goods, as I mentioned before, as transportation, as dealing with the truckers, as dealing with the warehouse people, as being on the shop floor. But supply chain is a lot about strategy, is all about the holistic view of the organization. Once I mentioned in one of the forums, which actually received a lot of accolade, was like, I believe that the CEOs of the industry need to be from the supply chain now, because they understand the entire business part of it. So we are not like this. We are not focused on one aspect or one function of the business. Say it, we might be fortunate. I would say actually more fortunate than unfortunate, but we are fortunate enough that we have an entire view of the business, because otherwise we can't do a good job in supply chain. I need to know where my raw material is coming from, what is my raw material trend, what does the industry want, what does the customer want, what can my plant produce, what are the constraints for my plant, how do I have to plan it, how do I have to maintain the inventory, how am I going to service the customer, how am I going to collect money from the customer. So that's almost the entire gamut of business, and that is where the strategic shift has happened. And that is what everybody needs to understand, that supply chain is so much more than just moving goods from one place to another. You start with planning those goods. You start with planning those raw materials. You start with discussions with the sale. You start with discussions with the finance on the margins. You start with planning your inventory, replenishment, safety stocks, collections from the customer. Because see, there are, as of now, at least 3 to 4 verticals under me. So it encompasses everything from demand planning to supply planning to customer service desk to logistics, as well as our master data. So that's almost covering the entire gamut of business. And I would say the only thing that we don't cover is probably finance and actually selling to the customer. Apart from that, we have a huge holistic view of the entire business. And that is where the strategic shift has happened in supply chain. Because, and also, it's also about I would say supply chain always meant this, but somehow stereotypically or traditionally, people only thought of it as warehousing and transportation and truckers. But I would say actually call it not for, I wouldn't call it fortunate, because obviously COVID and the geopolitical situations and everything were very unfortunate things that happened to the world and to the people. But having said that, once that happened, then people started getting up even more and realizing that supply chain cannot just be about truck movements and movement of the goods. It is more about, as Mr. Mallik spoke earlier also on the topic of resilience, it is also about building resilience in the entire structure, which starts from probably deciding your raw materials, deciding your capacity. So resilience in every part of the business. You can't have one part of the business resilience and the other part is not talking to the other part. So first of all, everybody, every process, every structure needs to talk to each other. And that is where supply chain plays a very, very important part. And that is where we help in building resilience. So supply chain, which initially, and see, on paper, it is still a cost center, but I would say over the period of time, people have started recognizing, the boards and the, I would say, the management has started recognizing over in time again, supply chain is a profit center, because the kind of cost savings that you get into the picture by way of protecting the business from external challenges is something that sometimes it's not very easy to quantify into money, but I think it has started getting recognized at the board. In the boardrooms, it has started getting recognized. And that has the strategic shift that has happened in supply chain, becoming a pillar. One of the, I would say, in our organizations, it recognized about 5 to 7 years back, it recognized supply chain as one of the key pillars of our business. So when we had a vision, mission, we generally set those vision, mission boards for our organization. Supply chain was recognized as one of the pillars. And that speaks a lot in how supply chain has evolved over a period of time. And these are the kind of strategic shifts that have happened. What now needs to be done in the industry is to break the stereotypes, because I still feel that there are a lot of stereotypes. And that is why when I'm invited to talk about, how do we interact female talent to supply chain, because female talents probably I'm asked to speak about it, because which means somewhere people still believe that it is about dealing with truckers, and I'm like, no, I don't deal with truckers. I have people to do that. And there is a lot more to supply chain than just dealing with it. It may be just a part of it, but it's not the entire job. And the entire job is much more interesting and much more, I would say, strategy driven, basically. And I hope that we are able to, really, with the strategic shift, we are really able to attract the right talent into this function. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Shivan. It was a very interesting talk. And you spoke about the entire transition that supply chain has undergone, right from, the definition of moving consignments from one place to another to the holistic strategy that an organization should build. And you also mentioned that it's actually the geopolitical jolts that the industry has, taken up, that has brought in the fresh perspective to the supply chain that a company should have. And of course, female leaders are needed to guide the entire supply chain and logistics. So we definitely feel that the industry should welcome more female leaders into this perspective, into this area as well. Thank you so much, Ms. Shivan. Our next speaker is Mr. V. Raju. He is the Chief Operations Officer at I3PL India Private Limited. Mr. Raju brings 42 years of experience in the strategic planning, business development, 3PL warehousing and port, CFS, and terminal operations. He has worked with major logistics companies, including DHL, Adani Logistics, and All Cargo. Currently at I3PL, he heads the contract logistics and 3PL segments and has led logistics assignments across the Middle East and Africa. He was honored with the Transformative Leadership Award in 2019 and Lifetime Achievement Award in 2023. Today, he will delve into the topic of crisis response and how chemical manufacturers are navigating shipping disruptions and logistical hurdles. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Thanks, ma'am, and a very good afternoon to all the people out here, to the audience who are also connected to this forum. Before I begin, my sincere thanks to the organizers, to the Chemical Today world, and also to all the well-wishers of this audience. Good afternoon to fellow panelists as well, and I presume this is going to be a very interesting supply chain conference. Let's focus on this ever-changing world, the geopolitical scenario out there in this middle, which we are encountering on a day-to-day basis. February 2026, the world changes totally. The economic order changes totally. The supplies to different nations, the supplies to across the world changes totally. Everyone is sitting at the corners and sitting at the edges of the seat, not knowing exactly as to what is going to be the situation tomorrow. The factory managers, the organizational chiefs, the plant heads, etc., are keeping their fingers crossed, because what really turns out in the next 15 to 20 days really is havoc across the world. The world changes. We all have learned, we all know, we have read about something called as the VUCA world, which is a volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, uncertain world totally. But here it is, the world unveiling in front of you, where everything changes with a single strike, with a single blast, with a single attack on countries in between them. Mine turns back to the COVID-19 scenario. COVID scenario, as well as the Houthi rebels. Why? Because the anatomy of the present problem starts from those days and how we encountered them. The Houthi rebels in the Red Sea is very similar to what the Strait of Hormuz is today. The COVID phenomena is very similar to what happened or what is happening even now across the oceans and across countries where there are petrochemical industries, where the petrochemical organizations, where the factories, where the petrol fields, etc., have been hammered and damaged by severe bombing and severe missile attack. What happens now? What are the impediments which each industry and in turn even the logistic service providers are unable to really focus upon? The vessel availability, the container ships which carry huge chunk of cargo, import cargo, or even the export cargo from different countries to Southeast Asia and the Asian countries are in a limbo. You do not know when this container is going to reach your country. Plants and industries do not know whether they will ultimately get these containers. It's a havoc out there. You're not sure about the vessel, which route it will be taking, because things are undecided and very, very flexible and liquid in situation. Now, a giant container carrier remember that carrying, let's say, about 5,000 to 8,000 containers on its on the ship, is unable to focus, unable to tell you where exactly and when it is going to reach, let's say, a port of Mundra or a port of Navashiva, simply because you're not sure whether you will be allowed to sail through Strait of Hormuz because it's blocked. A channel through which every day, literally, we used to read till Feb, 200 ships at the bare minimum used to cross peacefully and used to cross quickly. Today, the situation is such that hardly 8 to 9 ships, that too with special permissions taken from Iran and taken from US, passes through, but not sure what cargo it is going to contain, keeping the responders closed for nighttime sailing so that there is no untoward incident happening in the canal. At the same time, if at all the vessels decide to go through, they take a detour across the Cape of Good Hope. What happens really? The transit times increased by 15 to 20 days at the bare minimum. Vessel availability, as I said, and these are specialized ships, the container vessels, the gas carriers, and the oil tankers. Believe me, the freight rates for each of these containers are so high, and these are not easily available in the market. And these are charter ships, many of them carrying cargo on a special charter, on an agreement between nations. And that's where the problem lies. Now, these type of vessels not being available in the market, even for big importers like India, China, and the rest of the countries, you are in a real problem. You cannot plan your production, because in India, there was a time, believe me, friends, when I traveled from Gujarat to Mumbai, and en route, even the local restaurants did not have gas to help you get even tea or even snacks during the day. They said that gas is a shortage, it's at a premium, the rates are unbearable, and we cannot pay. That's the sort of shortage that one faces during these times. Then the routing, as I said, is through Cape of Good Hope. When this happens, the insurance premium on account of higher tariff rates and higher risk across for these vessels goes sky high. There's something called as war risk premiums being added. The freight rates add the peak season surcharge as well, because these are times when a single slot, a single container slot is going to cost you, is going to break your back with the rates that they're going to charge you. Then on top of all this, LPG cannot be brought in. There's a shortage. The country which is producing this has been hammered by Iran's missiles. The CNG we cannot get because of problem at the canal. The crude oil shortage, which is also there because most of the Gulf countries have been involved in the war and are facing severe production crunch because their factories have been hit. Now, these are the different uncertainties that we all face. And if this is not a VUCA world, and if these are not the impediments, then what are? Or what are the problems that we face better or more severe than these things? So that is where my earlier panelists mentioned about how a production center or how a factory or how an organization, a chemical factory, faces these impediments and tries to find out solutions. As a service provider, as a 3PL service provider, as a warehouse operator, as a logistic service provider, there are some of the solutions which I can also discuss about, which will help sorting out these crises and find a via media solution to sort out these impediments in the current world. Routing changes, of course, we discussed about that. The alternative routes have to be charted out. Increased freight rates is going to cut down on your margins, is going to decrease your profits, which you already calculated, which you have planned in your finances. The stocking of chemicals. Now, this is a very, very important thing, because unless and until you build up your inventory, having learned about the initial experiences during the war, the rest of the time period, that is 6 months, 1 year, by when the entire situation is going, hopefully will come to a normalcy, you're going to face problems if the inventory is not built up. Now, how do you build the inventory? Gone are those days when we used to think of regionalization. for your imports. The procurement managers had a clear-cut mandate in the companies that they should try and procure it globally through a global tender for their imports. Mind you, go to the Gulf countries, go to the Southeast Asian economies whereby they could import all this, but those times are gone due to these geopolitical trends happening. We need to go for nearshoring, and we need to look at diversifying the imports to countries which are very, very nearby, our neighbors, or also from localized suppliers. If required, import substitution be done and reshoring all over again. Find alternative chemicals. Sulfur is short, DAP is short, things are not getting imported. We have fertilizer crisis, the aluminum is short. So everything that you can think about which gets imported from the Gulf countries, namely Qatar, which has been hit, Dubai, where the airports have also been hit so that nothing can move in by flight, and Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, you name the country in the Middle East from where huge imports and huge tonnage used to move into India has really been hammered and hit. So much so that the government of India and other countries in the Gulf are seriously thinking of laying a submarine pipeline and move the crude or the oil through a pipelines into India. This is one of the strategies. But what about the others? Nearshoring it in country as a whole to Russia, from where the oil gets moved into India, and Venezuela as alternate suppliers. And the moment a truce for, let's say, 10 days, 20 days, 30 days happens, try and import and cash the market with countries like Iran themselves, or for that matter, Qatar, to supply your gas. So this is what is continuously happening, even at the highest levels of the government. And then you talk everything about overseas, you talk about the global scenarios, absolutely fine, gentlemen. But what is happening to your own ports in India? Your own ports, Nhava Sheva, brings in a new problem. Or every alternate week, you'll hear some other new problem. We had a massive problem with drivers going on leave, on holidays. So you had nobody to really move the trailers, move the vehicles across, import containers, piling up within the port. And as a result of which, port congestion started, not only within the port, but also with the vessels waiting for berthing. The berthing time, the berthing allocation became a huge problem. So over and above availability of raw materials, availability of vessels, you also had your own, one of the biggest ports in India, facing this sort of a problem. What do? I'll give you a famous example which happened with us. There was a company which is working from Silvassa, which was importing its containers from Nhava Sheva. Now, remember, friends, through Nhava Sheva, when this problem happened and they had a JIT, remember, just in time. But this JIT world, whenever you get a time, move the containers immediately. Find out space, find out warehouses, find out adequate inventory to be stored. These are the new trends that happened. So what they did was they moved containers to ICD Tumb through multimodal freight movement, multimodal transport. And from ICD Tumb, it's only 38 kilometers that their plant is at Silvassa. Now, yes, the freight rates may be slightly more, but what you're able to save is by way of demurrage, by way of penal ground rent, and by way of vessel time. And your factory keeps running. So similarly, many of the importers have now started, and exporters also have started using Port of Mundra, just to make sure, because Mundra is equally a very big port. Of course, the only difference being it's a privatized port, whereas Port of Nhava Sheva is into the government. So all the big carriers, the major vessel carriers, do berth in at Mundra as well, and that has a better efficiency rate and a quicker productivity. So therefore, I know many importers and exporters now started to use Mundra during these uncertain times, during these problematic times. So this is something which we need to adopt. At the same time, you also need to look at avoiding port congestion. Now, supply chain visibility becomes extremely important during this port congestion times. Thinking of alternatives, you always talk of AI and digital solution, digital supply chain tools, etc. But can I ask, many of the companies which are working, it's good to invest in AI, etc. But how many of you have real-time tracking? The importers and the exporters included, a real-time tracking of their containers, right from the time it is moving in, let's say from Malaysia or Indonesia into Chennai or into Calcutta, and then on to your industry. How many of you really have the real-time tracking? These are the times when you need that. These are the times when you need alternatives as well. Now, basically, we talk of all these probabilities and all these alternatives. At the end of the day, the solution, the conclusion to this, the analysis which I have done, to this review which was done, is basically as follows. The freight volatility is going to remain for some time, believe me, friends, because even after a truce is arrived, you're not going to have all the things sorted out immediately. It's going to take 6 to 8 months at the bare minimum, and thereafter you need to find long-term strategies to solve such problems, which are going to recur again, which are going to recur every time in the Middle East for sure. Then the port connection or the port congestion, which can arise at times. So alternative ports should be used. Customs complexity, using the software, using the availability of officers, online clearances, etc., need to be really looked into. Then the corridor unreliability, which means whether we move containers directly from the different ports up to Nhava Sheva, and from Nhava Sheva to the ICD points, etc., which corridor suits you best and which can be relied upon, where you have multiple train services moving in. All these points need to be looked at. So in short, it is a geopolitical realignment. It is a friend shoring strategy. Like you move across from ports which are well known to you, which you can depend upon, externally from countries where you know you can really rely upon and you don't have problems in the geopolitical world. And then finally, multimodal logistics really is there to help you. So data governance, trust and accountability, deploying AI, and real-time risk prediction are the tools that you have to depend upon solving the problems as we go ahead. Over to you. Thanks. Thank you once again for giving this opportunity, and thanks everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raju. It was a real reality check that you have given. And rightly said, we live in a VUCA world, a world which is defined by its volatility, its uncertainty, its complexity, and ambiguity. And I think till the time we have Mr. Trump with us, he definitely would love to keep the world in the VUCA mode.
We can keep testing VUCA across.
Absolutely. And add more definitions to it as well. Moving on.
1 minute, Devarati, just a minute. So I just wanted to mention, I wanted to thank our supporting partners, Dasher Logistics, who also are active players in this segment, and it'll be good if we can play their video once again, you know. Also has been providing support to all the chemical companies and all their other clients also during these times of uncertainty, and you know, so I felt it will be good that if you can just mention them once more. Right, over to you, Devarati.
Our next speaker is Mr. Tarun Joshi. He is the Senior Sales Manager at AP Moller Maersk. Mr. Joshi is a seasoned supply chain professional with over 16 years of experience and expertise in global trade, ocean transportation, warehousing, and integrated supply chain solutions. He has led strategic customer engagements across the manufacturing, automotive, FMCG, food, and retail sectors, enabling organizations to optimize their end-to-end supply chains and navigate complex market disruptions. At Maersk, he manages strategic relationships for global key accounts to build resilient supply chain in increasingly volatile global environment. Today, he's going to speak on the lessons learned from geopolitical crisis and the future of logistics and supply chain. Welcome, Mr. Joshi. Over to you.
Thank you, Devriti, for the introduction. Sometimes things doesn't go as per planned, so you may have to share the screen presentation. I am unfortunately I'm not able to share it. I'm joined from some other device. Thank you so much. So good afternoon, everyone, once again, and thank you for staying. Probably this will be the final session. Like David mentioned, I'm part of the global sales team at Maersk, where I closely work with customers on their global supply chain needs. I would like to share today the perspective drawn from real-world experience, the insights, and I hope that will be relevant for you and useful for us. Next slide, please. Yeah, you can remove it. I mean, this was a video. So integrating the word, I mean, that's the buzzword that we keep on saying in within Maersk. To me, it is not a simple phrase, but in today's environment, it has a deep meaning. When we look at the last 5 years, it is hard to find a period where global supply chain has been tested so repeatedly. COVID-19, we all remember COVID-19. I mean, freight rates had gone up, chip shortage, auto plants got shut. There was congestions at one point of time, if I remember correctly. There was a time where close to 150 ships were waiting at Los Angeles port for their turn to come in. Then we all remember the ever given the Suez blockade time. I mean, one ship was 12% of the trade off the hook. It was a 6 day, and the freight rates again went up. The capacity went down. The Red Sea ongoing since last 3 years. Houthis attacked at the vessels, and everybody has to take the longer route via Cape of Good Hope. 9% of the capacity gone in a single day. The export lead time increased by 10 to 15 days, 16 days. And last, and which is currently going on, the Strait of Hormuz, which my fellow panelists just talked about. I mean, if you see all these events, all these events taught us. I mean, these were different events, but they taught us one simple lesson: supply chains are no longer operating in a predictable world. Next slide, please. Thanks. So the question is no longer will there be another disruption. The real question would be, are we prepared when it happens? And that is what future readiness to me looks like. I'll talk about what Maersk did during this time. Like all our industry peers, we started rerouting all the cargo via Cape of Good Hope when this. And it is still continuing, because for us the life then when the recent crisis on Strait of Hormuz happened, we lean on Salalah. We did it as a hub. Out of Salalah, we used Khor-Fakkan in Dubai as another as another hub, and then we try to move some of the critical cargo like medicines, fertilizer from there. So that's what we did as Maersk. Next slide, David, please. Thanks. So historically, supply chains were designed around one primary objective: efficiency. We focused on reducing inventory. We focused on lowering cost sourcing. We focused on lean operation, and these strategies also worked extremely well in a stable environment. But today's world is not stable. The lesson is simple: how should a supply chain look like? So I've created a four pillar point framework for everybody. To me, we should follow this type to manage. On this first pillar is diversity. The era of depending on one supplier, one country, or single trade route is ending. Organization must build options in their network. Alternative sourcing locations, alternative suppliers, probably alternative transportation modes. That is what diversification looks like too. The other pillar I would say is the real-time visibility. You can't manage what you can't see. That's very, very simple. Today's supply chain require real-time visibility across supplier, inventory, transportation, and customer demand. So these are no longer investments. These are strategic capabilities that you actually built up. The third would be that you can see on your screen is inventory built for dealer. For years, inventory was considered a cost. Today, inventory is also insurance. I'm not suggesting excessive stockpile, but strategic buffer inventories for critical material. That is what we need, which can provide protection during geopolitical. Last, I would say it is capacity, partnership, and collaboration. That's the fourth pillar of my framework. No company can build a resilience alone. I mean, they would need manufacturer, logistics provider, ports, shipping lines, government. We all must be together for this collaboration. I mean, working closely with customers across industries. I've seen a clear shift. When you have information, you take those informed decisions. That's what is critical for this. Next slide. I mean, this is my last slide. Like I said, I mean, working today when I speak with any of the customers across industries, the discussions are changing. I mean, the earlier discussions were what is the cheapest logistics solution. Today, the question at times is how reliable it is, how much visibility will we have when things go wrong. That changes everything. That says everything. I mean, supply chains today are no longer just about cost. They are strategic assets, and in world disruption is where disruption is becoming. The winners will not be the companies with more. They will be the companies with the highest resilience, because resilience today is no longer a competitive advantage. It's a business. Thank you. This is what I had to present.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tarun. And rightly said, last 5 years have been very challenging on the supply and logistics professional. It's like getting beaten up again and again by different issues. Also, you all mentioned that the pillars of supply chain and logistics that used to be efficiency, cost, lean operations, etc., has been changed to diversification, real time, and how flexible you are to change on the go. So that was a really wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. This brings us to the end of the presentation, and we'll go to the last and final segment of the webinar, which is the question and answer round. I have a few questions with me, and any of the speakers can take it up as per their interest. The first question that I had over here was that many of the speakers spoke about the conflicts are rewriting the trade routes. But as a logistics professional, what do you consider the early warning signs that should be addressed proactively rather than reactively? Can anyone take it up?
Yeah, hi, Gudrati.
Right.
I don't know if anybody else is taking it up.
Yeah, please go on, Ms. Shivan.
Hi. So, if your question is the early warning signs, I would say in that case, we would probably all become astrologers or Nostradamus because, unless we are not in the business of analyzing politics and political moves. So I think it would be very high handedly saying that we can basically act just on some initial signals, when probably, when COVID happened, we had few cases starting off in China. I think nobody did anything at that time. Then the geopolitical situations across Russia and Ukraine, across Iran and US. So basically, till the time these things are not hitting at home, like in your geographical territory, nobody really kind of really understands or goes deep into the implication. Abhi, when Iran-US war started, obviously we understood that oil may be impacted and all that. But I think even if we by some sense of, I would say, premonition, we can make out, okay, now something is going to happen. I think it happens then so fast, maybe a week or 10 days. I think it's any which way too late to react, basically. If by some sense of luck, I get a premonition, okay, Iran and US is going to get into a war, and probably Iran will arm twist US and close the Strait of Hormuz. So I should reroute. But I think no amount of time, those 10, 15, 20 days are not enough to really reroute my shipments which were already en route, or really to decide the future of what is going to the rest of it. Neither I will be that agile to really put in, like suddenly start developing vendors, maybe in some other part, or say, suppose develop a vendor in Japan or somewhere which does not get impacted by Strait of Hormuz or wherever. Just giving you a hypothetical example. But having said that, doesn't mean that we are not prepared. The good part is now, having faced this back-to-back upheaval, I would say, like the COVID, like the geopolitical situation, probably the world itself has prepared us to introduce resilience. But what Mr. Mallik spoke, that we have introduced resilience into our structure while all these situations impacted us in a big way. But I would say what we were, say, 6 to 7 to 8 years back, we are much more, I would only say we cannot predict, but that we are more prepared to face these situations. That's what I would want to say.
Right. Thank you. Does anyone else want to add to it?
Yeah, just quickly, very
Yes,
quickly.
Mr.
So
Mallik.
there are logistics experts are available, panelists are there. Very quickly, see, there are definitely some early signs. Sometimes you get to think that, okay, gut feeling that perhaps, yes, snowball ho jayega, it will go into different dimension altogether. But since you don't have anything to fall back to, then what you do is continue with the same way which you are currently doing. And that is where it is very important to build in those structure which panelists talk about, that nowadays there is pattern, there are some disruptions happening, and hence this has to be a system where there is some backup available. You might not trigger those based on early sign. Maybe you want more evidence to trigger. It all depends on the company. But you have to have those structure in place. For example, alternate supplier, though it is very difficult. In one country, you might have one supplier. Can you have, say, as panelists said, that in Japan, can you discuss that thing at least in the strategic discussion? Can you see that we have couple of consignments, maybe 10-20% of our material get from there? Can we do that? Though it might be a bit costly, that is where I said that cost of resilience comes into picture. But are we prepared for that? And that is where sometimes we ignore these early signs. Yeah, that's what.
Right. Moving on to the next question. Many of the speakers spoke about AI and digitization, which is being incorporated in the supply chain and logistics landscape. However, on a very practical note, many mid-sized companies, they find it very difficult to go for a full-scale digital transformation because it is complex, it is expensive, and various other reasons. So what do you feel would be the most impactful low-hanging fruit areas where AI can be easily integrated by these companies? So Tarun, would you want to take it up?
Yeah, I can. I mean, so the first and foremost things that comes to my mind is the basic visibility. I mean, a lot of liners like us provide at times a lot of EDI integration at times which are free of cost. There is some kind of sizable business and there are platforms which integrate themselves with the other companies' network to give a basic kind of visibility. For me, if you have to predict the future, you can't actually, like the fellow panelist said, that you can't actually predict the future, but you have to be prepared for the future. So for me, the basic visibility is something where we should start with. That the basic that comes to my mind, and then there are chatbots that you can create very easily for a customer service, basic customer service kind of support that doesn't cost you anything. I mean, you can just go to basic YouTube videos and you can learn how to create that. So those are also something which, from an AI perspective, are very basic and doesn't cost much to create something very very basic.
Right. Mr. Raju, would you like to add your perspective as well? Raju, the question was about integrating AI by mid-sized companies.
Yeah, right. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, there was some problem in connectivity. Okay, my answer to this question is very clear. We all have been talking about AI and, we are also a department, we have invested into AI, so on and so forth. But the key question is, are we very clear where all can AI can be implemented? I mean, we talk of production lines, we talk of procurement in supply chain logistics, etc. But what is it going to do? See, the basic function of an AI as it stands now, unless more research which is being continuously done, is it augments the human efforts. It acts as a support to the work that you do. Now, for example, a very simple example is, I can ask AI a question that, look, I want to resolve this, or I want to know about this logistics function which is going to happen, event which is going to happen today. You punch this question, you get an answer with all different possibilities and different options, etc., description, etc. Now you need to select from that which one is applicable for your event, for you, for your company, etc. So what in the end of it I'm trying to tell you is, this is not going to be, it's not going to displace human thinking, human thoughts, or your intelligence, or your efforts within the company. The company can no more, the people can no more, supply chain logistics can no more think. Once I have invested into AI, once I'm bringing in experts to work on AI, that's the end of the day for me. That's the end of my efforts. What it's going to give and help you is work out options, work out the routing for your ships, work out the countries where this particular product is available, work out how many days it takes to reach, so on and so forth. Everything that you need to know, which you may not at the present stage. And then it can even suggest the best option to you. But at the end of the day, the decision lies with you. The decision lies with your management. The decision lies on various parameters, the cost, the budget, the time limit, etc., for importing X particular type of material or for exporting a certain material. The options in the vessels, the options in the countries, and is it good to go by flight? Is it good to go by ocean? So on and so forth. This is how AI should be used and implemented for starts at the moment.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Raju. Moving on to the next question. Most of the speakers have mentioned all the disruptions that we have faced in the last 5 years, be it the COVID, the Russia-Ukraine war, the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, etc. Which of these situations do you personally consider the most valuable learning lesson for you? And as a forward-thinking supply chain leader, what are the areas that you should be prepared for?
Can I start this?
You can all very quickly, all four of you can give your pointers here.
Yeah, just 2-3 points. I just wanted to say, I mean, with the permission of the fellow panelists, I'll just explain a couple of points. As a service provider, let's say as a logistic service provider, COVID was more of a difficult experience for me because I had to find workmen, which was always a short supply. I had to find out ways and means of reaching my warehouse. I had to give them accommodation during that time to work. I had to open the warehouse, taking permissions from government authorities for 3 or 4 hours in a day only. And then all that a customer will do, all that a company organization will do is call me up and say that I need XYZ cargo, and I'm sending one vehicle, just fill it up, load it up at X particular time. So, I mean, all these variables were very, very challenging for us to meet and to ensure that supplies are made. So, and it prolonged for quite some time, remember, friends. So therefore, for me, COVID was more of a challenge. But yes, the current problem is more of a challenge for the industries, is more of a challenge for the importers and the exporters especially, because changing the route, changing a vessel, coming from, let's say, Dubai, which used to come to you regularly, is not an easy job, because I have worked as a vessel planner at Nhava Sheva for IPEC service, that is Indo-Pakistan Europe service, for almost 3 years. And I know what difficulty it was to change even the berthing time for a vessel at your port, even though you have a fixed window for your vessel. So I am sure what I mean to tell you is, for us service providers, COVID was more of a problem. But the current geopolitical scenario is more of a problem for importers, exporters, and vessel owners. Over to you. Thank you.
Right. Ms. Shivan, would you like to give your opinion?
Here, actually, what we have learned, I think it is not from one particular incident, but I would say a culmination of all that happened over the last 5 to 6 years, because I would say the learnings were different. Because at the time of COVID, I would say we literally halted, right? The world halted, the people were buying less, the factories stopped working and everything like that. The situations that arose with geopolitical conflict was as far as people consuming in your country or consuming in your neighborhood did not halt. However, the production for the same, due to the raw material availability, due to the disruption in routes, due to the vessel unavailability, became a challenge. So while the demand was there, there was a halt in production due to all these challenges. So how it needed to be dealt was in certain ways different from how things happened during COVID. So what I would say is, like, what we have gotten in the last 6 to 7 years is basically a very different scenario. And that is why I have been emphasizing again and again that we have actually integrated multiple what if scenarios into our systems, which, because actually, but when I say when COVID happened, I don't think so any one of us in their wildest dreams would have basically imagined something like that to happen. But so I don't think so I would be over confident in saying that we have seen it all and we are totally prepared. That would be being very overconfident, and you don't know what the world throws at you. But yes, we have seen multiple scenarios in the last 6 to 7 years, and each one of them have taught us a completely different lesson. And we are kind of lucky enough that the same we managed to integrate into our system. So what COVID taught us was very different. Everything came to a halt. There was no demand. So how do you run your businesses? What do you do? Get into alternate businesses? Do you prepare for the future? What do you do? Similarly, the current situation shows that people are still buying, people are still using, but you don't have the, I would say, the goods coming in because of your routes are suspended, your routes are under threat or whatever. So it has all taught us a different thing, actually, I would say. None of the learning has been the same.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Tarun, would you like to take up or give your opinion on this?
No, I fully agree with which Ms. Priyanka had said. I mean, every disruption was different, and they all taught us one lesson at least, the similar lesson that we are not living in a predictable world, and supply chain don't operate in a very predictable world. I mean, any disruption can happen anytime, and we need to be prepared for that disruption. That's what I would say.
Mr. Mallik, please do give your opinion as well. And after that, probably, Shivani, can you take up a few questions from the audience?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr.
Very quickly, I will just add, because agree with all the panelists. It's really difficult, but the COVID has been really very significant, as everybody said, because it was first time such thing happened. You know, the crisis committee and other things were never like, it was not the norms. After that, it became very norm that, okay, you should have all those committees take the mock session and all those topics. So that is again really a very significant event that happened. And then later, of course, different events taught us different topics. What I future going forward is something which I want to really put in is again emphasize upon the mindset that we have. Are we looking into the crisis when it happens? Then you go and say that, boss, get the material because it is not happening. My production plant is halting, and my customers are crying. Or are you putting it in a place, collaborating with the different service providers, different infrastructure that are available, and building those things within your organization is very important. So that is where the mindset plays very important role. When we are taking action on those topics is very important.
Okay. So I'll take one final question. Someone had mentioned that, using green logistics and bringing sustainability in terms of logistic solutions and resilient supply chain. So how are logistic companies, logistic segments looking into providing those solutions, and how are you trying to implement the same for your customers? What are your perspective on that? Sure, Mr. Raju, you can go ahead. Yes. Mute. Sir, you are on mute, I think.
I said I did work on this project while I was in Colorado, especially keeping in mind 3PL logistics. First and the foremost is the reduction of energy, costing of energy, spending of energy, etc. That is also by implementing solar panels, generating electricity through solar panels and solar panel roofs. In fact, one of the chemical warehouses that I'm building in this new company here at Jagadia, Gujarat, is incorporating solar panels on the roof, even to start with. And then, of course, teaching the people, especially the transporters. We've had sessions with our transporters to incorporate battery run vehicles to bring down the pollution levels being generated by diesel and petrol, etc. And then green park wherever possible. Gone are those days when we used to think that you build more trees, it's not safe. It helps you people entering the compound, having robberies, etc. Those were the age-old concepts. I remember when I used to work for Bombay Port, we used to have that concept. But now, greening your park is extremely important. Somewhere it helps you reduce the pollution and the heat energy dissipation, etc., etc. So these are three of the most important steps that we take. Of course, we also do not allow any of the transport vehicles and engines to keep on running while the loading and unloading functions are on at the warehouse, while it is being parked within the warehouse complex, etc. So these are some of the basic steps. And the primary thing which we should even now look at is reduction in usage of paper. Because remember, for getting one sheet of paper, which you scribble upon and then throw it in the dustbin, you're consuming so many tree trunks, obviously. So the basic thing is use your systems wisely, use your systems to send mails and assurances and approvals on the mails itself, and reduce the usage of these things. These basic baby steps are some things which many of the companies should implement, because many of them have done nothing even now. So this is how I think we can really move ahead and then focus on the bigger aspects of reducing the pollution and sustainability and green effects.
Right. Any other questions that we have, Shivan?
Anyone would like to add more perspectives to the sustainability green logistics part of it?
Yeah, maybe I can quickly add what Mr. Raju had said. So as Maersk, we have committed in COP26 that we want to be net zero by 2040, and we are really working towards that. So as we speak, in fact, we have inaugurated one of the vessels in Bombay as well, and in Nhava Sheva as well, and it was a dual ship vessel wherein we were using methane as an combustible engine for it. So that's how we have committed to the world from an ocean perspective. From a line side perspective also, like my panelist has mentioned, most of our warehouses that we today use would have those solar roof. We try to use that water in a recyclable way. It would not add to the net zero thing, but those are the small things that we use. In multiple countries, we are using those EV vehicles. In India, we have more struggle in terms of using EV vehicles because the technology has not that developed from a load perspective. But as a company, from Maersk, we are quite clear that we want to contribute to the planet and we want to be net zero by 2040.
I think that brings us to the end of the session, and it was quite an informative and engaging session. And I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all our speakers from BASF India, Clariant IGL Specialty Chemicals, I3PL India, and AP Moller Maersk for sharing their valuable expertise with us today. I would also like to thank all our participants for joining us. It was your interaction that made the event truly impactful. Finally, I would like to thank Dashard for being our supporting partner and helping us take the event forward. And if you have further questions, suggestions, or comments, please feel free to contact us at the email address that is up on the screen. And until next time, have a great evening.